Hey, do you feel anxious about those project meetings? Stakeholder engagement isn't a soft skill. It's the single biggest predictor of a project's success or failure. Over the next 15 minutes, 6 of us will break down the precise 4-step strategy to make sure your stakeholders aren't just informed but actively invested.
Before we further go ahead, I want to connect what we are going to discuss. Because here we will be looking at the formal project management standards. According to PMBOK guide, stakeholder engagement isn't just a communication, it's a structured process. It begins with identifying who your stakeholders are. And once you identify them, we further need to go and understand what are the issues that they are dealing with, what are the concerns that they are having. And once we understand this connection, we further go and we try to manage how is the relationship that is going to get developed. The goal is not only to share the information, but to shape how people think, how they feel, and act in relation to the project. So the purpose of this entire tutorial is to show that PMBOK principles, how they look real on a day-to-day project. How do they interact? How do they strengthen the project manager's ability? How are we going to deliver successful outcomes?
Before you take action, start with a plan. We use the power interest grid. If someone has high power and high interest, they are your key players. High power but low interest, keep them satisfied. Miss this step and you'll be facing an uphill battle.
Engagement is not just a checkbox exercise. You are not just reporting status, you are building a relationship. The goal is to move from compliance to commitment. Listen for their true concerns, what keeps them up at night, and not what just the agenda is.
One of the strongest insights in project management research is that most project failures don't happen because of poor technical work. They happen because expectations were not aligned or communication broke down. If we take a look at the Project Management Institute Pulse of report from 2022 highlights, it clearly states that projects with strong stakeholder engagement were likely to succeed 1.7 times. And wherever there tends to be a communication gap, the end is about a project failure. And if we further go ahead, now when people are aligned at early stages, they understand decisions, and when they feel involved, you avoid unnecessary conflict, delays, and last-minute escalations. This aligns directly with PMBOK's stakeholder performance domains, which emphasizes early alignment to reduce uncertainty. When engagement is done well, it becomes a prevalent tool as much as a communication tool.
You wouldn't communicate the same way with a CEO and an operation manager. Your engagement strategy needs segmentations. For the CEO, you provide a concise high-level summary of the impact, and for the operation team, you share a detailed dependency matrix. So, always tailor your message according to their roles and specific needs.
How engagement builds project management capability. If you look at the PMBOK guide, it explains that effective stakeholder engagement strengthens the core project management capabilities. If we look here, there are 4 different scenarios. Basically, these are the behaviors which has been supported in the PMBOK guide. When you communicate early, you improve the decision-making process. When you manage expectations, you tend to reduce the risk. It involves the risk management. And when you maintain transparency, you build trust. And when the trust is created, it automatically brings influence as a project manager. These behaviors which has been outlined, it shows how important it is to communicate, what information each stakeholder needs to have, how often they should be engaged, and what engagement level you want them to reach, from resistance to a supportive environment. So engagement is not a soft skill. It builds competency in risk management, communication, and change leadership.
Stop scope creep and endless meetings by creating a simple stakeholder engagement charter together. You need to spell out who gets what information, how often you will check in, and how quickly feedback could come. It keeps things clear and everyone accountable.
Here's where you win. Every stakeholder cares about three things: risk, reward, or resource. Before every meeting, ask yourself, how does this piece of information impact their budget, their reputation, or even their strategic goal? Frame your update around their value drivers, not just your progress report.
Most project updates are too long. Start with the headline and ask, we are doing this week, but we need a decision on the budget for phase 2 by Friday. That's it. Then dive into the details only if they ask and respect their time.
Conflicts are inevitable. Don't avoid it. When a stakeholder pushes back, don't get defensive. Use the acknowledge, probe, purpose framework. Acknowledge their concerns, probe to find the root cause, and purpose a solution that bridges the gap between them. You just become a partner, not an advisory.
Now, let's try to bring some real examples from the professional projects. For example, if we are trying to look how an hospital EHR implementation takes, the team has created a power interest grid to map where the stakeholders are going to be placed. If we take the scenario of this EHR implementation, now here, who is the responsible person? The person from the IT team will be considered as responsible. The project manager will be considered to be as accountable, whereas the physicians, the providers, are largely going to be considered as consulted. And if we take a look, the practitioner, registered nurses will be informed. When we further go ahead, they have discovered that as the nursing supervisors were highly impacted by the EHR implementation, but they were not being consulted. Now here, when we take a look, they must be brought from the informed and they must be placed in the consulted. When such a shift is happening, the project is going to note that with managing closely, the resistance are going to get dropped. The adoptions are going to increase dramatically. Now, such a shift in the RASI matrix shows how exactly we can further go ahead in a more controlled and with a better management. Now, in the second example, look at a construction company. By creating a simple red, yellow, green dashboards which were introduced for their weekly status updates, the Project Management Institute has shown a case study from 2021 that such kinds of reports which has a visualized dashboards, it reduces the meeting time by almost 40%. Because of which everyone could instantly see which areas are requiring current and a very strong urge of attention and what are the areas in which we are going green. And another example we can talk about is how a software can be rolled out. The project manager is facing some kind of a conflict. By creating such a dashboards, we can reduce the conflict as well. So therefore, the EHR implementation in a hospital setup or a construction company or even a software rollout can have these kinds of dashboards and re-including how the matrix is supposed to be placed.
Data only matters when it tells a clear story. Ditch the endless spreadsheets and build a simple red, yellow, green dashboards with KPIs. A visual summary makes the message obvious, so discussions can focus on solutions instead of just status updates.
Engagement is a loop, not a line. Every meeting must end with a clear action items and honors list. Send a concise summary within 1 hour. This closes the loop, documents decisions, and prevents the inevitable, "Oh, I don't recall agreeing to the problem later on."
Another key principle in PMBOK is transparency. No stakeholder should ever be felt surprised by any issue that affects them. Sharing risks early builds credibility and shows maturity. Engagement is also measurable by creating quick pulse surveys. By creating some kind of participation trends, and the quality of the feedback also shows whether engagement is strong or it's declining. If engagement drops, the communication strategy must be adapted in a new format. Dashboards also supports to monitor and control the process by making status visual and easy to interpret. This helps stakeholders stay aligned and make faster decisions.
Never ever let a stakeholder be surprised by an issue they should have known about. If a risk increases, communicate immediately, even if you don't have the solution. Transparency builds trust. Silence eliminates suspicion. Early warning is a sign of resilience and not weakness.
Now, what is the importance of stakeholder engagement and change management? The PMBOK highlights that stakeholder engagement and change management must go hand in hand. Whenever a project introduces a new system or a behavior, people usually react emotionally first and logically later. Here, you can look at the Kubler-Ross change reactions. Initially, there tends to be a denial, but as the graph shows that in the later stages, as the time passes, it tends to bring some sort of an acceptance. But how can we make this graph more smoother? There are different kind of management strategies that we can look into. Announce the changes in the advanced stages. Explain the why behind those decisions to be taken. Give opportunities, walkthroughs with some pilot sessions. Create feedback loops so people are felt they are involved in the decision-making process. These steps reduce resistance and help the stakeholders move through the change curve from awareness to understanding and largely to acceptance. When people feel included, their commitment rises naturally.
How do you know if your plan is working? Always Kanban it. After a few other Mondays, use a simple anonymous survey. On a scale of 1 to 5, see how precise is your project under the waterfall. And do you feel your feedback is acted upon? Adjust your strategy. It's not a Jira. Make sure you always remain agile.
To summarize, stakeholder engagement succeeds when people feel informed, when they are being felt respected, and lastly, it always must be inclusive. It's very important that your stakeholders do not remain just as stakeholders, but try to make them as partners. Because by mapping these stakeholders, we further get to decide how the phenomena are going to exist. By personalizing their communication, staying transparent, and closing every loop, we turn stakeholders into a concrete partners and not mere obstacles. These behaviors are at the heart of modern projects, and they fully align with the latest PMBOK standards. And the research has consistently proven the strong engagement leads to smoother projects and more successful outcomes.
Map and segment. A one-size-fits-all approach is a recipe for disaster.
Frame your communication around their value drivers. For example, risk, reward, or resource.
Be transparent. Communicate bad news early and frame every update around an action or decision.
To bring an end to this video, engagement is the key to transformation. When you follow these steps, you are not just managing stakeholders, you are empowering your partners. Turn passive observers into champions and watch your projects soar to success. Thanks for being a part of this journey.